Alrighty, we're back with part two. This wasn't designed to be a two-part thing, but I talk a lot, so I was already like an hour into the first part, answering a lot of the common questions, and then I got a client call at like 9 p.m., which is what happens when you work with startups. It's 9 in the afternoon, truly. So now we're on part two, where I intend on going through the top 10, and this is all sourced from ChatGPT, so we're seeing what the LLMs have to say. The top 10 common startup founder myths debunked. So these are the most common myths that definitely aren't true, that have been thoroughly explored, and that you don't need to concern yourself with as much, or maybe you can learn a little something from at least my perspective. I took a skim through this list. I haven't like fully thought of all my answers, so you're going to just hear them raw as I practice and mess about. So without further ado, perfect. So, myth number one, you need a groundbreaking idea to succeed. This is certainly not true. I had a buddy who he and I used to joke all the time. He's a really smart guy, Ivy League, then went to Morgan Stanley, then went to Harvard Business School, then opened his own firm, just a true, business capitalist mindset conqueror, and a good guy all the same. And we used to laugh all the time because we would go, man, we just love boring businesses. Like, I would love to own just the potato sass, just make it as boring as possible. And I want it in every boring business in America. I want the software that helps paper companies manage paper, or this, that, or the other. And it was half in jest, but the other half is because a lot of people want to make something that's exciting, when in reality, it's all about the execution. And a lot of the most mundane ideas, or mundane sounding ideas, when executed properly, are worth a lot of money. Like, fundamentally, the example I like to use, which is a silly example, but it's fun, is a washer. And like a washer, like the little donut thing that goes, underneath the screw or whatever you're doing. It's like, the person who created that is worth more than any little SaaS founder ever is, or probably will be, right? Like, think of the volume of those sold, that like whoever owns the patent and created that. And you know what that was about? Simple, flawless execution. Can we make this exact little metal donut to the exact specifications and size, and then can we distribute it effectively at a fair cost or a fair price all over the world? It's like, notice that idea is not like, it's innovative, but it's not like crazy innovative, in much the same way that Facebook was innovative, but it wasn't crazy innovative. MySpace existed before. It's not like Facebook was the first social media company. It also wasn't even the first social media company to get like Main Street acclaim and like a lot of people on it. MySpace even had a huge valuation, and it was still pales in comparison to what Facebook was, because of the execution of Zuckerberg and the team. The vision that they created, and the future that they saw, and the ability for them to execute on it in a way that had yet to be seen, and may never be seen again in such a way. It's like, that is what made him the money. My other favorite example of this, which is probably a bit more real, and I used to joke about this with buddies in New York all the time. Uber was thought up by 100 different drunk people standing on the streets of New York City. I guarantee it. I guarantee there were 100 drunk idiots, myself included at one point, standing there going like, man, I wish I didn't have to like do this and like get a cab and like walk down streets until I see a light on. I wish I could just hit the button on my phone, and then the car would pull up, and I'd be happy. And it's like, yeah, that does sound nice, doesn't it? Like, that sounds fucking brilliant. But then nobody goes and does it, which is hilarious, because like taxi services and cabs and all that stuff existed the whole time, but nobody connected them efficiently. And it's like, here's the deal. I actually don't even know this. I should Google it. There must have been ride sharing apps that tried before Uber, I would guess, or something that approximated ride sharing, pre-ride sharing, ride sharing. Because what Uber fundamentally is taxis manned by regular people with a digital app to coordinate it. Like that's the end. Like, yeah, they do more stuff, and now they'll deliver your eggs in like a Baconator, but they're still just moving, you know, point A to point B, the end. You know what that is? Execution oriented, because you're not providing an innovative service. They're not giving you a massage in the middle of your ride. They're literally just trying to make sure that the execution of this core simple offering is done flawlessly, or as flawlessly as it can be within reason, of course, because there's always going to be little problems. But notice the idea for the washer, the idea for Facebook, the idea for Uber, for any of these things, none of them, again, question marks on innovation, because innovation can mean a lot of things. Like, how innovative is it to be an adjusted form of a pre-existing concept? I don't know. I don't really care. But it's much more of a, okay, clearly the idea source doesn't matter. It matters how you execute on it. This is the other huge reason why I'm always telling founders, I literally don't care about your competitors at all. Like, it does nothing, because your ability to execute is the most important thing. What if your competitors suck at managing money and hiring, and they don't know and nothing about nothing, and they just have a really good social media presence, and that's why you think they're so great? What if they're out of business in 2 years and you're still plugging along, and year 3 is when you win? It's like, these are all what ifs, but they're only what ifs because we're in the past. In three years from now, you could win, and that could be you. But it doesn't matter if your idea is great. And the other side's true. It doesn't matter how innovative or uninnovative, non-innovative, whatever your idea is. It matters how well you execute on it. The most innovative idea in the world with poor execution goes nowhere. It's nothing, you can't really say anything more than that. Myth number 2, you have to raise venture capital to build a startup. Not true at all. Many successful companies, startups, obviously primarily, but just in general, grow and succeed and become enormous, never raising external funding, or never raising from like a VC or a private equity firm or somebody like that. They get money from the bank when they have enough revenue or assets or blah, 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 traditional stuff that all companies of a certain stage have access to. But like, there are so many companies that succeed, and it's like 0.1. It's like definitely less than 1%. Let's call it, we'll be generous, 0.5% of all startups receive VC funding. And again, startups have a super high failure rate, but you know what it's not? 99.5. It's not just the ones that get the VC funding that win. And quite often, a lot of the ones that get the VC funding fail. As you can see, sometimes having too much of a good thing, meaning capital, or a good thing done at a bad price or a bad deal where you get like too high or too low a valuation, can also kill you in its own little ways. So it's like, clearly it's not the VC that's the make or break. They can be super value add, and they can do tons of stuff to help your business move along and make introductions and do business development and accelerate decisions in 100 different ways or blah, blah, blah. But it is not a de facto like, oh, take this pill, it's the VC pill, now your business is successful and you win. It's like, no, they know that they're going to be wrong quite often, and they are wrong quite often. That's why they have to make so many bets, because even if the business is perfect, what if a COVID happens? What if this happens? What if the industry changes, or a huge competitor comes out and changes the name of the game? It's like, there's so many things that could be different. And so they understand that that risk is part of it. They also know, again, from the VC side, that they need to try and wedge themselves in where they can. That's why they position themselves as being very helpful, because lots of companies don't raise VC and go on to be very successful. There's a whole methodology around this. It's called bootstrapping, where you use your finances and the money that comes from the business to grow the business. very often, depending of course on how much money you have and how quick the business is to earn money, this can take longer, right? And it may be a slower burn, but the nice thing is you get to keep 100% of the company. You get to go as fast or slow as you want. You don't have these arbitrary like expectations put on you, because remember, if you raise VC money, they're going to be looking for an exit, and fair enough, that's why they're giving you the money. Like, you kind of have to take, if you're going to take the money, you have to take that part of the deal because that comes with the money, right? So thinking through the different ways to build the startup, which shouldn't, my advice would be, you shouldn't de facto think I need to raise money for my startup. I would encourage, and what I've seen work the most successfully is, imagine money within reason wasn't an issue. And the way to think about within reason is, imagine if you could like justify it to like a committee. Like, imagine I made you stand up in court and you had to justify every expense you needed. But if you could go up there and do it, not like we need 100K for the yacht party, you ain't gonna get it, right? If you could go up there and say, hey, we need 250K to hire these people, and we're doing this, or we're doing like okay, what business would you build? What value would you offer? How would you do it? And if you start from there and then work your way downward, down the supply chain to figure out, okay, if this is where we want to end up, AGI, where do we start? Oh, large language models and, chat interfaces. It's like we create a path to follow, and notice maybe the end path would require VC if we needed to get there today, millions of dollars and tons of this. But maybe if we do it our own way and either use our own finances, use revenue-based financing, get a loan, take money from friends and family as either a loan or as an equity investment, maybe you can build a huge, giant, successful company and not raise venture capital money at all. And the truth is, venture capital, it falls in the same bucket as traditional banks. And what I mean is, for a traditional business, they are admin. Like, nobody is getting into business, or let me put it like this, nobody should get into business, to raise money from VCs. A good example would be, that'd be like buying a 747 for free peanuts. You can just hang out with rich people, my guy. Like, you can just make money. You do not need to do a deal and negotiate and attend 100 networking events and do all this stuff just to get 250K at a valuation that you're not that happy with. Like, you don't need to live this life. You can build a whole giant company. You just may have to be a little bit more creative or a little bit more, confident. Maybe you don't have all the money that you would need to build all 10 features that you really want. If you had like VC money, you could do it. But because it's only you and, you and the wife are all happy to do X, Y, and Z and decide, hey, we're going to put 100K into this business that we're creating. It's like, great. Now, if you determine that the features are going to cost you for those 10 $1 million, well, guess what? Now you can only probably do 1 or 2 features. So you got to be right. And maybe you have to go do 100 more customer interviews. And yeah, if you just had the VC funding, you could just spend the money, eat the loss, and call it a day. But you don't, and you don't want to have it. And you have another path, and the path requires more work, but hey, everything in life's a deal. What are you going to do? And now you get to proceed and build your business without the stress of having that funding. Totally fine, totally good. Definitely not necessary. Myth 3, if you build it, they will come. Dear God, is this not true? And if you don't believe me, there's a reason why most early founders struggle with sales so much. Very few founders, other than the ones that are building something like really technically advanced, struggle with product. Like, product may cost some money, and product they may have a few bugs, or they may need to like figure out how they want like their UI UX, but these are little baby problems, right? These are things that 100 businesses, 100,000 businesses before them have solved. These aren't like new things. But you know what's a problem that everyone is still trying to solve? Sales. Because it's really easy to go build something. It's really on the grand scheme of things, to go build a piece of software, to go build some little product or like some consumer device. It's really easy for me to go build just some super aggressive financial model that makes it look like you're going to be a gajillionaire, right? but to actually take that product and make a product that is positioned properly through either sales or ads or just, its general market presence, however you're doing that initial distribution, where it really resonates with the customer and connects, like that is hard to do. That is hard to do. The way that I like to think about it is, in the beginning, you are pushing sales. It's not that you're having to force people to take it, but you have to push yourself to be out there in the world, pushing the product, talking about it, engaging with the customer, not, and I may be clear here, not counting on them to come to you. They don't know you. They don't like you. Matter of fact, they don't want to know you. They don't want more things in their life. How many of you are actively trying to delete apps? You don't want more things in your life. So don't expect the customer to want more junk in their house or one more app on their phone, or you're building a B2B software. The CFO does not want one more recurring charge. Trust me, I can tell you that I don't want to deal with that. But if there's good ROI, and if you go find me and you can convince me of it, I will gladly eat it because the ROI is there. But will I just chase you down to do it for my own benefit? Not unless I'm solving like a really painful problem that I'm trying to solve, in which case I'm more interested in, what I want in this whole scenario. So in that way, if you build it, they will come. I would not count on it. I would focus very heavily, and it's what I encourage all of my founders to do, is to build lead lists early. Build letter of intent lists early. Letters of intent are basically, they look legally, they can look very simple, or they can look like basically legal contracts, but they are non-binding. The idea is, here, I'll give you the most basic LOI in the world. Like, I Steven, or I Aaron, or I X company am really interested in this software and would love to pay these people $500 a month, assuming the software can do A, B, and C, starting at some point in Q4. Signed, Mary. It's like, that is an LOI, because it's not I commit to absolutely do, like I'm going to buy your stuff, whatever. It just says like, I am documenting my interest in like a very formal way. And you can, use that going forward. That's a good thing to do. Writing down all your friends and family. If you have like some little consumer device, you have the next best jump rope, whatever. You write down all those people. You create a little basic website, or even better, create a little form, a Google form for free. Then you bookmark that form on your phone. And now when you go around your day-to-day life, while you're doing product development, while you're doing customer interviews, while you're just at the family barbecue, and someone brings up exercise, and you go, hey, I'm working on a little jump rope project on the side. And they go, oh yeah? You're like, hey, I know it seems weird, but it's fun. I'd love to put you down if you want to like learn more once I have something ready. They go, yeah, put me down. It's like, all right, Steve, what's your email again? Bam, you just got a lead. Like, you cannot count on the leads to just come, but you can damn sure go find them if you're willing to go and do the thing. Barbecues, official conferences, startup networking events, just being at Chipotle. Like, I don't care where you meet people. If you talk to people and tell them what you do and talk to them about what you're building and are just clear, transparent, and confident, you can start building some interest if there's interest to be built. Maybe you go out there and you find that nobody wants what you're offering, or maybe you have to really change how you're pitching what you're offering for them to either get it or want it or what have you. But to trust me, again, you don't have to trust me, but I'm going to encourage you to trust me. You do not want to count on someone coming to you for your product. You want to count on you having to push to start, and then over time, especially as you do more content marketing or even just have more referrals, you get pull, where people are pulling you towards them. They go, hey, I got referred to you by John, or hey, I saw this thing on your website and I wanted to reach out, or hey, I saw you posted this TikTok. Let me ask you about this. Bam, you're getting pulled. That's a good thing to do. Number 4, I need to quit my job to start my business. Most successful companies, or let me put it like this, a lot of successful founders start their business as a side hustle that then gets big enough that they can then justify moving over. And gets big enough means a couple things. It could mean that they make enough revenue to make the leap. It could mean that they make enough revenue, and between where their revenue seems to be going and their savings, they can make the leap. It could be that they just got venture funding and now they're going to make the leap because now they have backing. And part of what the venture capital firms want, which this is very common, is, hey, if we're going to give you a couple $1,000,000, you know, like, you should be full time on this, because that we don't want you clocking in 9 to 5 and being sleepy. We want you working, you know, 9 to 9 on our stuff. Fair enough. So there's a lot of times where it can be definitely relevant. Where I find this comes up more often than not, it's antsy founders that are just tired of their workplace. They don't like their job, they don't like their project, they don't like their team, they don't like their industry. They're eager beavers, and that eagerness is good to a certain degree, but when you want to jump too early, it can spell a lot of problems. And here is the main problem. I do not have an issue if people hate their job and want to quit it. By all means, I didn't like my job and I quit my job, so it's like, what the fuck? So it's like, I have no problem if people want to do that. But what I have a problem with is when people are like fleeing their jobs, you know, like they're quitting without a plan. Let's call it a fleeing, which is, hey, I don't have like the startup isn't really doing all the things it needs to do quite yet for me to justify leaving it. So, but I'm going to leave it anyway. And now here's the problem. Now you're going to start making decisions from scarcity. And that is one of the easiest ways to ruin a startup and ruin just like any motion that you have going, which is why I'm always so cautious about when founders want to leave. It's, if you're going to leave and all of a sudden we're not going to be able to like spend money on ads, or we're going to be really nervous to like test things, or we're really going to be like questioning ourselves if we want to like do the full scope of work for the next phase, it's like, maybe you should just stick with your job, because like we need stuff done, and we can't have you so stressed that the business has to carry the weight of your stress because you can't carry the weight of getting through your employment, right? And I don't say that to be harsh. I say that because I'm on your side. It's kind of like when your parents told you to eat vegetables, you know, because in a perfect world, they loved you, and because they want you to be, you know, big and strong. It's like, I don't want your business to fail, and I don't want you to be in a stressful, poor situation. Trust me, I've been there. It's like, and you do that sometimes by doing a bad thing, meaning have a job that you don't really want or whatever, in order to enable yourself to do the good thing later. It's delayed gratification, as it were. Number 5, I need a co-founder to succeed. Wrong. Now, if you're talking to venture capital firms that are going to put a lot of money in you, and they're setting some like really aggressive expectations and all this kind of stuff, it's not that you need a co-founder to succeed. It's just about more risk reduction. If there's 2 of you that have like your life on the line for this thing, the odds that it like gets built is probably higher than just like one guy with self-accountability. The other thing is key man risk. Like, this is no joke. When I was a banker and we would have like big IPOs, like initial public offerings, where companies were issuing equity to the market for the first time, management teams would have to fly all around the country and, of course, you know, sell investors and do all this stuff. Well, they would have 2 planes if they were big enough in terms of like the company, because they had key man risk, which was, hey, if one of these planes goes down, we can't have the whole executive board die. Like, I'm for real. That's like a real consideration that you have to take into account, because they're like, all right, so that means the CEO and the CFO probably shouldn't be on the same plane, or the CEO and the CFO can, but the COO can't, because it's like, hey, someone's got to lead the organization in this way if something happens. Like, that is the level of planning that can happen depending on, again, the size and importance of the business. Now, that is when having a co-founder matters, because key man risk. And when you're a startup and there's only 2 of you, yeah, we're not booking private jets, but what if one of you gets sick? What if one of you, your husband has a surgery, and then you have to go and be there for whatever, a random surgery, and you have to be in the hospital for 3 days because of something, whatever. And what if and then you have an investor meeting that afternoon, and you literally can't go because, you know, you're trying to like be a good, you know, wife or whatever. And it's like, well, can my co-founder go? It's like, yes, this is like the perfect use case for a co-founder to pick up the slack, to be there, to represent the company, to partner with you in that way. So in that way, having a co-founder can be incredibly helpful because of all just the benefits that you get from it, and you're able to, partner with them and all these things. But it is absolutely not necessary, especially if you're not raising money, because so much of the early part of the process doesn't require a co-founder. Because I think that the early part of the process is really industry and like team member agnostic, because anyone can do customer discovery in an organization. Like, anyone can go talk to people, even if you're bad at talking to people. Like, you may not get as much good info as someone who's good at talking to people will, but if you do it 100 times, trust me, that 100th conversation is going to go a lot better than the first. So, and when you're an early stage founder, like, you need to be doing customer discovery yourself, or else how are you ever going to make decisions and lead the organization with any degree of reasonable confidence? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. If you have confidence that you can lead the organization without having talked to the customer, respectfully, that's arrogance talking, and arrogance isn't investable. I hate to tell you. That is not a myth. that I assure you is a fact. So when you look at this whole, like, I need a co-founder, in the early days, like, let's just, again, from the very simplest of terms, let's say you wanted to build a business. You're like, Aaron, I want to start a SaaS business that helps people that own, I don't know, luxury cars, rent them out. I don't care, right? Whatever. It's like, all right, well, do you own a luxury car? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, great. And what's your role and experience? Oh, you can pick your role. I was a marketer. I was a salesperson. Here, let's do like a random one. I was in operations. I own a luxury car, and I worked in operations at a luxury car dealership. Perfect. Just random person, right? It's like, if this person wanted to build that app, I don't need them to go hire a developer, because that's not where we're starting. We're not building this thing to begin. Because even if they go, I know exactly what needs to be built. I know every letter. I know every button. I would go, oh, you do? You do? Oh, that's nice. That's cute. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to paint me a picture of all these buttons. I want you to go to Fiverr, and I want you to shell out every page, every button. There not better be one typo in that whole thing, because you're telling me you know. I want you to show me everything you know immediately, because we can do that for, a couple $100 to a couple thousand. And if you know it that well, show me. And if you can show me, why don't we go show it to 5 people and see how they react? Because surely if you know exactly what they need, and surely if you've built this thing in Fiverr with some nice graphic artists, and they can make it look real good, right? And then surely if we show it to customers, they'll love it immediately. If you're feeling any sense of hesitation right now with this theoretical example, respectfully, you should. Because you should not be confident in things you do not have concrete evidence for. That's called being silly, right? So when we talk about building a startup in this scenario, it's like, okay, you say you own a luxury car, you say you work in operations, you want to build this app. That's amazing. Here's where I think we start. Why don't we start by doing a bunch of customer interviews, and we confirm how many people are running into the same problems that you are, and how many of them would be interested in the same type of solution that you would be. Those are the only 2 things I want you to go talk to them about. Talk to them about the problems you're having and see which problems resonate, and talk to them about your potential solution. Describe it however you want. Go wild. And I want you to go have 10 of those conversations. And you go have 10 of those, I bet you the app that you're thinking of building looks a little different. I bet you have a slightly better understanding of where we should start and how we should progress the business. And now if we did that 10 more times, we learned one set of 10, another set of 10, another set of 10, on and on. Now we have 100 customer interviews, or should I say leads, under our belt. And besides all those interviews, now we have all this data on what all these people want. We know the messaging that has worked with them. Now we go to a development shop, we go, hey, so we built this 500-page Fiverr thing that has all these slides. We went and did customer discovery. We narrowed it down. Here are the 30 pages that we need built into this app, and here's the workflow. And the development shop guy goes, I've never been handed something this detailed in my life. Oh my God. And then all of a sudden, what normally is a 6-month build becomes a 3-month build because you're not asking for all kinds of BS and you've taken the time to get to know what you need. It's like, look at how much value, how many months of work, how many millions of dollars in like equity value and just movement you've done by having conversations, documenting things, talking to some professionals, and then getting hiring a couple people on Fiverr or doing it in Figma or hiring your little cousin. I don't care, as long as the things get done. That's all that matters. It's like, look at that. And none of that needed a co-founder. None of that needed VC. None of that needed any nonsense. It just needed you to do the work that comes with building a business, a simple, fundamental business. Again, I wish it were more complicated than that. It isn't. Sometimes it's just hard work. You want to build muscle, you got to do a bunch of curls. That's how you get big arms, tons of curls. But I don't really want to. It's like, well, listen, then don't have them. Because you can try and not do it, but I assure you it's going to be way more effective if you do it. Number 6, first mover advantage is everything. Wrong. Facebook wasn't the first social media. Google wasn't the first search engine. ChatGPT was the first LLM as far as I know, but clearly they've got a bunch that have come out that are on their necks immediately, right? Like the LLM race is far from over in that scenario. First mover advantage, what's funny is I find that this is actually something that means way more to founders than it does like people like me in terms of like community builders, investors, angels, serial founders, people that are involved in like one or many businesses, because there's a certain appreciation that we understand where it really comes from that first one of execution is everything. That first mover advantage is nothing, because someone could move first and deliver something horrible. In my painter example, if you're the only painter in town, but you paint at a C quality, you're going to get a good amount of business because you're the only painter in town. But if Picasso moves in next door, you're fucked. Like, and fair enough, right? Like, that's just how that goes, because he's better than you. And therefore, you being there first was cute. It was not defendable, but it was cute, so that's good. And that's why we can't afford to care about it. Yes, if you're getting the patent for a thing, like, that matters. I'll give you an example. I mentor with this really cool program called the Venture Mentoring Team, based in Miami, and I have had the opportunity to mentor with this woman who she's literally one of the women that has her name in the Smithsonian for being on the patent for creating the original sports bra. Like this is like the definition of founder, like in terms of you're in the Smithsonian for startups. Like it's the Smithsonian. It's like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and then like her and like the team. It's crazy. And it's like, that is when first mover matters. You want to know why? Because they patented the sports bra. Okay. That's when we care about these things. Because she literally patented the sports bra. That is when we care about these things. That is a first mover advantage that carries weight. The rest of it is just you being the first one that spent enough social media dollars to get noticed first. But there was probably 5 more competitors that you've never heard of that came out in 1999. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't help you. I don't care if you're the last. I want last mover advantage. You want to know why you're the last mover has the advantage? You get to see what all the first movers did and screwed up on, and then you just go fix it. You know who has last mover advantage? Apple. Want to know why I know that? Because Android releases all these cool little features like 2 years in advance. Apple looks at it, makes a better version of it. You can say they don't or whatever. I don't really care. Practically, functionally, they do. And we just get a more polished version. So Android gets the first mover advantage because everybody buys the new thing to get the new thing. But Apple then in a few years releases the Apple foldable phone that is for some reason somehow better because they spent, you know, $2 extra billion on the product design. Great. That's last mover advantage. Number 7, you have to work 100 hours a week to win. Wrong. What I will say is this: the reason or let me put it like this, it depends. And I'll give you a good it depends, because the reason it depends is not because it sometimes takes 100 hours and sometimes doesn't. There are days where there's just more work to be done, right? Where you're just buried in emails or whatever. So ignoring those days. What I would say is building a startup takes the right hours. So some weeks, I don't know that any week it's no hours. I don't know any week that it's 10 hours, but let's just say that some weeks it's 20 hours and some weeks it's 80 hours. Well, the question isn't how many hours is it, it's how many hours extra did you work? Meaning of the work that needed to be done that moved the business forward. If there's 20 hours of it, but because you don't know what helps the business and because you're not efficient or because you're new or because of 100 other factors that are maybe within or outside of your control, again, no blame, just reality. It takes you working 50 hours in order for you to do the 20 hours, to find those 20 hours in that 50 that actually mean something. And the other 30, it's not that they were wasted because you needed to get through them in order to find the 20, but later in a perfect world, maybe instead of working 30 hours extra, you only work 20 hours extra. So now instead of working on your startup for, 50 hours a week, you only had to work on it 40 hours a week and you got the same volume of work done because those same 20 hours of value were still done. And then the week after, 30, the week after, maybe it really needs 40 hours. But hey, because you've spent so much time dialing it in, you work 42 hours to get 40 hours of good work done. That is amazing ROI. And that's one of the things I try to encourage in all my founders. I would rather them sleep and relax and spend time with friends and watch movies and do whatever more than I would have them do work that makes it look like they're busy or work that makes it look like they're being productive when that's not what we need from them right now. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a developer who loves to develop. They go crazy with development. And I asked them to stop developing for a while because the product is done for what it needs right now. The product needs to be implemented, it needs to be tested, then it needs to be improved. I don't get anything by making this developer work and work and work and add and add and add when it's not time for that. I would much rather the developer takes a few hours off, spends time building our internal documentation, spends time figuring out the team that we're going to need underneath them, assuming things go well. Like, spend time that, notice, it may not be on product, but it's certainly valuable. It probably takes less hours than just grinding away on product. And notice that the developer now can still add tons of value and not have to do nearly as much, BS work just to say they were working. Like, to me, that's a lot of what being a good founder is. It's knowing where to put the hard hours in, because there's always hard hours. It's just a question of, are you doing the right ones at the right place at the right time? And part of that comes from experience, and part of that comes from being diligent and analyzing things and thinking through, decisions. Is this ROI? Is this not? As an example, if you have 3 co-founders and you catch yourself spending 3 hours a day talking about the mission and vision, and you don't have a lead list written down, for the love of God, set a timer, cut that thing down to 30 minutes a day, and then spend the other 2.5 hours writing down people that will give you the money that will afford you the office to keep arguing about your vision that's 5 years in the future for a business that you're 3 months into. God, like, please, just do the thing. Just do the thing that needs to be done. You're not incorporated. Incorporate. You ain't done customer interviews. Do the customer interviews. Like, more funding equals more success. Number 8. No. It's the end of that one. What I would say is this. There are so many startups, and I don't even have to name names. I'll just give you one name because it's fun. WeWork. Think of 1,000 other ones, right? That all have appeared on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, going out of business after raising X hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. And everyone goes, I can't believe it. Like, how could this happen? It's like, what do you mean? What does raising money have to do with making money? One of them is earned for providing value, and one of them is earned by providing a narrative that sounds appealing to investors. Truly, I'm not saying the narrative's a lie, but I'm an IPO banker formerly. Like, what you sell is the future. What you sell is the story, is the future of what the business will be. Much like what you're doing with venture capital when you're selling what a startup is going to be as you build it and grow it in the years to come. And here's the deal. Getting more funding very often, I find, is a cover. And it's a cover for one of two things. One, people raise money because they don't know what they're raising money for. Like, they're raising money because they're like, we don't know where to spend money, and where we're spending money, we're not spending it well. We need to keep raising money because, just like in the other thing where I said you have to do 100 hours of work to get the 10 hours that make sense, a lot of people have to spend $100 million to get the $10 million of value that they actually need. And I'm not saying it's super easy to deploy $100 million, but you would think, you would hope, you would pray even if you don't believe, that there would be somebody, or when people are building all of these giant businesses and taking on hundreds of millions of dollars, somebody would diligence these things like really well and really hold their feet to the fire before they just like throw all this money down the drain to a company that doesn't have even a good use of funds in a basic pitch deck. Like, there's that side, which is disturbing in and of itself, that a lot of companies raise money because they don't raise a ton of money because they don't know where they spend it. They don't know that their business takes $3 million to build, so they raise 8 just to be sure. And it's like, well, that's not good. That you just wasted a bunch of equity. You just gave away a bunch more of the company you didn't need to because you don't know how to plan, right? That's just the truth of it. You don't know how to plan effectively, and you're kind of losing. The other reason people raise money, and again, some businesses, let's footnote. Some businesses need tons of money. Some businesses absolutely need hundreds of millions of dollars. And if without it, they would fail. And with it, they go on to be super giant, profitable, value add, etc. This is not a pure only businesses, just raising money is bad. This is if you're just using fundraising as your KPI for success, that's a bad thing. Because of reason 2, which is a lot of startups, and I've seen this as well, they raise money because that's all they know how to do. And you go, what do you mean that's all they know how to do? I mean, they don't know how to provide value. They don't know what their customer really wants. They don't know how to build a real business. They know how to build a facade. They don't know how to build the inside of a house, but they can build a really nice porch. Just never go off the porch. Never ask to go in the house, and you'll never have to see there's problems. And if you just keep reinvesting in this porch, maybe it'll be good enough that nobody goes in the house. It's like, that's the vibe that startups that raise a ton of money and keep raising money incessantly give off, because you're raising a lot of money using, in a lot of times, equity, which is a bit silly, because if you're a really big successful company with lots of assets and lots of cash and lots of MRR, or monthly recurring revenue, you should be able to do like revenue-based financing, get revolvers and big loans from banks, do private lending, and strike up all these interesting deals in addition to any equity stuff that you may need to do. But if you're just doing exclusively equity, it's a little suspicious. Because why aren't you good enough to get bank financing? Are there problems with your bank financials? Which is, very concerning. And a lot of these businesses will just end up raising money, or these founders will just end up raising money because it's a good way to keep making it look like you're winning. If you have a CEO that all they know how to do is raise money, and the business isn't like really, like, let's say they're one of those California startups that raises a bunch of millions and like does a ton of investment in the business before they even like show it to customers as much. Again, business to business, not all businesses, but going that route, it's like, yeah, maybe that CEO is raising a ton of money because that's what's keeping their big salary in check, and they're spending way more than they think they should, or they're spending more than, more than they should. They're doing all of these things, and guess what? That's going to be the what they hang their hat on. That's how they go. It's funny. They go back to the first investors and say that the business is clearly succeeding because look, they got money from the second investors. When the truth is, if you want to, the ultimate measure of success would be that the business is doing well and customers are loving the product and people want to use the solution and all of these, really good, nice, exciting things. Not, we raised more money. It's like, you did more admin. Like when I hear someone say they raised more money, I'm like, oh boy, more accounting. Like, it's good to raise money because of what it enables, but it's like, we are not in business to raise money. We are in business to provide value to our customers. This money is literally like blood. We just have it in our bodies because it keeps us alive. None of us have it there because we like blood fundamentally. It's just a necessity. It's just gas in the car, right? And again, that's not being anti-VC. That's just being pro-business fundamentals, let's say. Number 9, your business needs to be perfect before it launches. This is certainly not true. And it's not true from two big perspectives. One is, it's not true because the sooner you get your product out there, even if it's bad, the sooner you'll learn about how to make it better and turn it into something that your customer not only likes but loves and will like pay you for, whether it's they pay you in cash or they pay you by using it a bunch and then allowing you to monetize it on your side. But the other side is, there's a bit of arrogance I find when someone says like, I want to make sure the product's perfect before launch. My thought is always, perfect for who? Like, perfect for you? It's like, you're the designer. Respectfully, when is a designer ever done with anything, right? When's a paint? How hard is it for a painter to finish a painting? Like, most painters are sending off paintings that they haven't finished in their own heads. It's like, yeah, this isn't, truthfully, respectfully, this isn't about what you think. Like, if you think your product is a 7 out of 10 and you work on it till it's a 10 out of 10, and then you hand it to customers and they go, yeah, this is like a 2 out of 10. Yeah, your product's a 2 out of 10. It is not a 7 out of 10. It is not a 10 out of 10. And here's the deal. Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares that you think it's a 10 out of 10. I cannot stress that enough. You care. Your team doesn't care. Your investors don't care. The bank doesn't care. The customers don't care. The Facebook ads don't care. The customer has to care based off of if they actually like it. And the question is ultimately, what do they think? How do they feel about it? So when someone says they want to make something perfect, my question is always, well, how would you even know if it was perfect? You are not the entity, like, to get philosophical, you are not the entity that does the knowing. You are the entity that does the data collection, that does the proving, the environment, the wilderness. You need to be National Geographic. You need to go out there and investigate and put it out there in the wild and see, how do people react? What do they say about it? And reporting back what they say. If you hate the product, and again, we'll just use hate as extreme language, but whatever. If you hate your product, but your customer loves it, you love your product. Not in like this totalitarian, like capitalist way where it's like your job's only to provide value. But it's like, no, like, bro, we're trying to build a startup here. The goal is to build something people want. You want to build something people want. Oh, look, people want what you're building. Like, stop crying and focus on offering what people want. Build something good and then build something even better after, or, progress from there. But people get very caught up in how they feel about their business, and I find that's a lot less relevant than how other people, namely your customer, feel about your business, because if you hate it and they love it, you can still sleep at night with millions of dollars in the bank. If you love your business and they hate it, well, that was a fun project that didn't go anywhere that we eventually closed. Like, that's not fun. And the last, number 10, the infamous entrepreneurship is glamorous. God. It's like PTSD. It's not PTSD, and I don't say that to discredit anybody that actually has PTSD, but to give you just the stupid analogy, it's like that because I'm just getting flashbacks right now. It's just every dumb night, every random meeting, every just stupid thing that's been involved in the journey, and all of the certainly unglamorous flights and meetings and just products I've reviewed and it's a lot. And if people could see how unglamorous it was, they wouldn't do it. It's very much like the whole ignorance is bliss. Like, they're not saying that like, tee hee, ignorance is bliss. No, no, no. The only way you are going to be in bliss is to be ignorant. Startup founders, like, they may get rich and some may have an easier path than others, but I will tell you this, that rich comes at a cost. And it comes at a cost of having to struggle through how just embarrassing the early days are. I remember, I'll give you a clear example. So right now, like, you if you're watching this or whatever, you're gonna see this on YouTube. It's like my little description, my little bio thing. It looks nice. I hope you think it looks nice. In the sense, like, I've like created things, and I've been a part of companies that have exited, and I've helped create two big accelerators in Florida, and I've helped educate all. Like, I've got a nice little, again, if I'm not tooting my own horn too much, but a nice little pedigree of things that I've accomplished. But if you just rewind that to the first 6 months of the business, you would see me sitting in my friend's apartment, my friend's 2-bedroom apartment, and I was just in 1 bedroom. And you would see me sitting on the floor in the fetal position, just staring out the window in dead silence, just feeling so embarrassed and ashamed at like how like much the business wasn't working, or how much this project wasn't working, how bad I was at sales calls, how bad I was at this, how I didn't know that. Like, oh my God. Like I feel the shame just thinking about it now, but hey, whatever. It happened. It happened, whatever. But it's like thinking through how unglamorous that was. It makes me appreciate, shocking, but it makes you appreciate how much more glamorous, thankfully, things have gotten, at least a little bit. And what it means to do the whole founder thing, because being a founder truly is a grind. It's a mental grind because you're always thinking about your business. It's an emotional grind because you're very often put in circumstances and situations that are difficult, whether it's difficult with a team member, difficult with an investor, difficult with a customer. Just, you get put in some, not compromising, sometimes compromising, which can be difficult, but more often just like emotionally, like you're not used to conflict, or you're not used to voicing your opinion, or being a dissenting voice, or doing this, and you have to learn how to do those things, and it can be very uncomfortable. The other thing I find that makes it truly being like really unglamorous, but it's actually my favorite part, startups are about like the relationship of right and wrong, meaning you're never 100% right and you're never 100% wrong with startups. It's about improvement, because if you offer your product to X, Y, and Z group of people and they rate it a 7 out of 10, like it doesn't stop there of, oh, it's good enough. It's like, how do we get it to 8 out of 10? Or if it was, and that's a good to great. But if someone rates your product a 2 out of 10, it's like, damn, all right, how do we get it to like a 7? How do we go from bad to good? Like, how it's always about looking upward. It's always about improving. It's always about putting forward an idea. And part of that is being very vulnerable, because it's like, hey, we're going to build this product or build this idea. Here's how I think it should look. And you build all this stuff and then you show it to a customer and they go, I don't really like this. I don't like that. This doesn't make sense to me. And you just get slammed, and it's so hard. It's so easy to take it personally. and to make it feel like, oh man, I'm a failure, and oh man, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, just because you don't have the answer today doesn't mean you're a loser. And just because you don't have a perfect answer today doesn't mean you're gonna not have doesn't mean you're condemned to having a bad answer for forever. It just means you need to take the time to learn, take the time to be less wrong. Not about being right, but start by being less wrong and then work towards right. And then go from being kind of right to really right. And then you're a unicorn. Like, the companies that are really right, the ones that are amazing, are the ones that have huge market penetration and big giant valuations. And they went through these very, very unglamorous times of struggle, of low finances, of lack of clarity, of lack of certainty, of lack of confidence. Like, I find that starting a startup, I heard this thing from like a relationship coach, and what they said was the biggest indicator of if a relationship is going to work out is if the two people in it actually want to be in it. Like, even if it's hard, if both people are like reaching to the other, like, I want this, like, the odds of it working out are much higher. In much the same way, I find that people that really want to build a startup and help their customer and solve a problem, they're willing to go through, through the fire and flames. Like, they're willing to go through the pain, the annoyance, the frustration, the unglamorous things, because not everyone gets through it. Plenty of people quit. They self-select out, and fair enough. Like, this journey, startup mindset is absolutely not for everybody. But if it's for you, it's really for you. And taking the risk and seeing it pay off and building something that people actually want, it's so satisfying, to the mind, to the bank account, to the life, to, your own personal, like, view on yourself and what you're capable of. It builds you in a big way. So I think that while so much of it is absolutely, the furthest thing from glamorous, there's so much glamour to be achieved if you're willing to get through the mud of those first, again, years, or it could be months before it's a little easier. Could be years, could be longer. It really is, again, about, could be the next business. Maybe the first one fails, but the second one wins. I know a few clients that they were working on one business and it just was an uphill battle and problem. And they start another business similar, or let's call it slightly informed from the first. And that one just started taking off within the first months. And it's like, hey, maybe you had to get through that unglamorous phase to get to this phase. And now you're all the better for it. So, that was fun. That was another hour of me, going on and on, as I'm known to do. I apologize if I repeated anything too much. As you can see, I'm like a psychopath running around here trying to get better at this horrible game, which I love so much. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully, again, this gave a little perspective and, a little encouragement here, a little nudge there, whatever it may be. If you have any questions, reach out in the comments. Please check out any of the other videos, and I'll definitely see you next time.